Welcome back, everybody, to this week's episode of the DCL Duo podcast, brought to you by My Path Unwinding Travel. And Sam, we're not doing listener reviews. We're skipping straight to the chase because we've got Leslie back for part 2 with Leslie on this fabulous Royal Caribbean world cruise that she is on. And I can't wait to hear the updates. So I'm sure you're excited too, Sam.
I'm super excited. So for those who didn't listen to our previous episode with Leslie, I want you to stop right now and I want you to go back a couple months and find the episode we did with Leslie. She is sailing on the Around the World cruise on Royal Caribbean Serenade of the Seas. And so we already went through her cruise history and how she packed and planned for this cruise and, what she's doing on the cruise and who she's sailing with. So we're going to jump in to talk to her about what's happened in the last couple months since we talked to Leslie last time. But before I do that, I want to let people know if they want to follow Leslie, she's got a great Instagram, Point My Soul North. And so you can follow her travels along in real time where she is in the world. Leslie, welcome back to the show. Thanks for joining us again.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. And just how crazy is this? We are somewhere between Brunei and the top of Indonesia in the calmest, most beautiful waters. And we have a beautiful connection with you. And yeah, we're on a call this morning. It's crazy.
It is crazy. And it is morning for Leslie. It's 10 o'clock in the morning, local time for her, which is Philippines time. And it's 6 o'clock in the evening for us here in the Pacific Standard Time.
And I want to point out to
Disney day.
And prior day, yes. We're Friday. Wait, right. It's Friday. You're in the future. So you're gonna tell us what's happening tomorrow, Leslie.
Well, and I want to point out for all our Disney Cruise Line fans out there, we are recording this episode while Leslie is at sea using onboard Wi-Fi. And if you're listening to this, we are actually getting the video stream from her and recording it. So it's unheard of for our listeners who like to sail Disney Cruise Line.
And to be fair, we didn't attempt recording video the last time. We just didn't know what the reception would be like, so we just didn't even try it. So we just did audio only. But this time, we set it up for video, and here it is, and it's streaming beautifully. Yeah, we've got a great view of your stateroom too.
Yes, yes. Before we dive into updates from Leslie, Leslie, first I wanted to share that our listeners just absolutely loved your episode. And there was one comment we got that I just wanted to share with you that someone wrote, "This podcast episode is amazing. I so appreciate the maturity of Leslie's experience on the world cruise. It feels like she is invested in the experience." And I will say this, not at all a knock on Jenny or anyone else. Not a knock. She said just the experience and not just an Instagram opportunity or getting to perfect photo for social media. I don't think Jenny's doing that either. And we can't wait to have Jenny back. So yes, what a great experience it's been following along with you on Instagram. We had one listener question I wanted to put at the top of the show because I was curious about the answer myself, which was, we know that the cruise is divided up. Basically, there's the World Cruise group that's on board, and then there's the folks who are getting on with you at each segment. When we last talked to you, you were just kind of getting out of South America and into Central America and headed for Los Angeles, which was the end of the first segment of the sailing. Folks were curious, logistically, did everyone on the World Cruise leg have to disembark and recheck in there, or did you just stay on board when you hit Los Angeles?
Oh, in LA, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so yes and no. So yes, we have to disembark. We have to go through immigration and then we come back on board. But huge shout out to Royal Caribbean and the logistics of facilitating this whole journey has been bonkers. And they have handled so many of these things with hundreds of people in just such a streamlined way that literally we could get off, go through immigration and just get right back on board.
Oh, fantastic.
So I in LA went to Target because, as we talked about last time, I was super excited to go to Target. But my partner actually got off, went through immigration and got right back on board. So
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Did they end up organizing the bus for you to they were talking about organizing
Target,
the bus,
right?
Yeah.
Yes. They took a whole bunch of us, the world cruisers, on Royal Caribbean buses and dropped us off. There was a Target, a mall, and a Walmart. Yeah. It was an excursion, and then they did buses every 30 minutes for, I don't know, like 3 hours or something, and got us there, restocked and back on board. So it was funny seeing everybody getting back on board with all these bags of resupplies, but it was nice.
Oh, I mean, even if you just run out of like your favorite snack, right? Like, it's not like the cruise lines, they stock a lot of stuff, but when you're over, for example, in Asia, it might not be so easy to get, like, I don't know, American Cheetos, right? Like,
well, it's your last sight of America for a long time, right? I mean, because you won't hit America again until you get to. You guys are returning to New York, or where do you port? You're first in New York. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I would love to hear about the segment since we last spoke to you. You all were supposed to go to Machu Picchu. There was a whole bunch of stuff that looking forward to. I understand there were some changes to the itinerary and whatnot. Why don't you tell us? We obviously won't cover every single port or excursion.
We'll be here all day.
Yeah, we'll be here for forever. But I'd love to hear some of the itinerary changes and how Royal sort of had to adjust things and what they did to compensate for those adjustments.
For sure. So you mentioned Machu Picchu, and the day before we were to leave to go to Cusco, which is kind of the jumping off point to get to Machu Picchu, there was a protest in Machu Picchu that closed down the train, the one and only train that gets you to Machu Picchu. So we kind of collectively met as world cruisers going to Machu Picchu and said, what are we going to do? And we decided that we were going to go and just hope that it would be resolved enough to get the train back open. Mm-hmm. We flew to Cusco, and unfortunately, it was not resolved. The tensions and everything that was going on had way subsided, but the train just hadn't reopened. But interesting thing with that is that's pretty much what travel's about. You got to kind of go with it and roll with it. You just never know what's going to come your way. And sometimes changes lead to just beautiful, amazing experiences that you wouldn't have had on the alternative path you intended. So Cusco is extraordinary. And as part of these Royal, to backtrack a little bit, Royal provided, I think there were 4 or 7 experiences in different ports. And this one was one of those ports. So they had a huge, beautiful gala, for lack of a better word, at a convent in Cusco.
Cool.
Which, when you think of convent in Peru, I mean, it's everything you think of. It was just a beautiful building. And then they had this huge cultural performance for us, and then a plated dinner in the convent. It was unbelievable. And just visiting Cusco, we were of course disappointed to not see Machu Picchu, but it was still a beautiful journey. And so, so that was Machu Picchu. And that's another thing with travel, is it just puts it on the we got to go back list. So we will definitely go back to Machu Picchu.
So was that one where you got, you basically, I think you said you got off and you decided, like, that was something you did on your own?
No, it was part of the world cruisers got 7 wonders of the world or something like that. They called them as included experiences, excursions, whatever you want to call them. But the Machu Picchu one was like a multi-day one, because they had to get off the ship. They were going to do the full, it's like a hike and all of this, right? And so it's a full multi-day experience. And so this was disrupted. I saw obviously on social media about this disruption. But tell us where you all made your way, after Cusco, where you all went to.
So this is funny. I got to check my notes,
Yeah. I mean, you've been to so many places, right?
I know. It sounds silly, but we will sail 274 days, and initially there were 174 ports. So I'm sorry, but I honestly can't even remember from one week to the next where we were.
No, of course not.
So after Peru, we went to Costa Rica. And you mentioned my Instagram page. I'm actually on social media everywhere, and on YouTube, on TikTok. Everything is Point My Soul North. And on YouTube, I did a video of our stop in Costa Rica. We had an excursion that was crazy cool at the volcano. I've never seen a volcano, so that was really cool. But it was a journey. And so suffice it to say, we were running. We were one of the pier runners getting back on board.
No way.
And so I won't spoil it. But so if you're interested, or any of your listeners are interested, it was a beautiful day, and it was fun to see how it all went down. So Costa Rica, and loved Costa Rica. And then we went to Guatemala, which was really cool. We actually had Nicaragua on the original itinerary, and they scrapped Nicaragua just for their issues there. And we went to Guatemala instead. And then we went to Mexico and ended up in LA, as we spoke about. And then Lake 2 started.
When we last talked to you,
my goodness.
When we last talked to you, the odometer was just rolling down to under like 300 days, right? So you're in at 299 or something like that. How many days do you have left on board as we're talking right now?
So we just celebrated 100 days on board, and I'll tell you about that celebration if you're interested. So we're on 104 days-ish. So we have about 173, which sounds completely crazy, but I have to tell you that it has become so normal and so routine, and we're so comfortable, and we're kind of just, it's like, this is everyday life for us now.
Right. And it's like Jenny's like your neighbor, right? Like I know, because we had actually planned on doing this recording with the two of you, and Jenny and her husband, I think, are off. Like they went off ship to do some other sort of excursion type experience, so they're not on board. So we had to adjust. But like everybody who's a world cruiser, you now know them all, right? And they're all they're like I said, they're like your neighbors in your neighborhood, right?
Yes, yeah. And what you would normally do on a normal cruise, you're having more hi, and how are you, and where are you from? We all now know each other, and it's kind of good morning, and you move on. It's not awkward. We're all we've kind of found our people, and everybody's found their places, and it seems very comfortable. And it's going well. You also mentioned itinerary changes, which I'll tell you about. Lake 3. Keep in mind, we're in Lake 2 now. And Lake 3 was leaving basically from Dubai and going through the Suez Canal to get up into the Mediterranean, come back. Well, of course, due to all the unrest there, it was very, unsure of whether that was even going to be an option for us.
Yeah, there's pirates in the Suez Canal. I mean, it can be at times a very dangerous crossing. Yeah.
Yeah. And that is kind of a constant ongoing thing. And the cruise ship lines actually have all kinds of safety measures in place and things they do for the pirates specifically. But and so that's obviously a concern, but it was also the concern with just everything that's going on in Israel and that whole area. So it just came down to it where there was no way we were going to go through the Suez Canal. So we started doing the math, a couple weeks prior to that, saying the only alternative is to go down and go around Africa. Wow. Which changes everything.
Oh, yeah, because it changes all your ports of Lake 3.
Yeah, it's a huge journey. It's time. It's different ports. It affects the entire Mediterranean. And so that was a lot of, just speculation about what was going to happen. And then they put it to vote. And I can just tell you how that went, or if you have questions.
Well, I'm so curious with the mechanics.
I love that they put it to vote.
Yeah, I'm so curious what the mechanics of this work, because essentially you're voting on behalf of the people who will get picked up in Dubai, right? Because did they get a vote in this, or did the World Cruisers?
No, only World Cruisers.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that. I'm pretty sure that only the World Cruisers on board had a vote. I think Royal put it out to just those third segment people, saying that the third segment they paid for just that journey was canceled because it's canceled. Right.
Wow.
And so then what do you want to do and how do you want to
do you want to rebook on whatever we're changing it to, or do you want to cancel and get a refund?
What were the mechanics of this voting? Because we followed along and it looked like they did some presentations and they gave you guys a few days to sort of mull it over, and then there was like an actual vote. And so I'm just so curious about how that went. And then, of course, we know the outcome actually, but I want to hear, like, I'm sure all the listeners have not been following as closely as we are. So, yeah.
Yeah. So historic for Royal to ever go around Africa. They've never done that. Historic for Royal to offer to the passengers, what do you want to do? They've never done that. But this is also just a historic journey that we're on, cruising the world. So, of course, it's, apropos. But basically, rewind to 2.5 years ago now, we bought and paid for an excursion, a journey that's now not what we purchased.
Right. Completely different.
It's kind of necessary to say, okay, here's the situation. Here's why we feel this way from Royal's perspective, what the concerns were, what their thoughts were. And then what do you think? We basically had 3 options. One was to go around Africa and scoot pretty quickly in order to get around Africa to get back on a modified version of our Mediterranean journey. The second option was to basically skip the majority of the Mediterranean and do Africa in more of an immersive way. And the third option as a passenger would be to disembark, if you wanted to disembark, and do your own journey. So they kind of put it out there. They told us what the different stops would be depending on how we chose it, and then gave us some time to think it through and put it to vote. And a specific day, we all had to give our thoughts back, and then majority rule. The ultimate decision was to the ultimate decision on the Ultimate World Cruise was to do Africa in an immersive way.
Very cool.
Yeah. So on a side note to that, again, shout out to Royal Caribbean, and I have no sponsorship or anything with them.
Yeah, Lizzie's not getting a free cruise. She's paying her way.
Yeah.
No, I've just been incredibly blown away of how they've handled everything. And this was no different. They have been very thorough and very just generous, in my opinion, of how they handled it. Because as you can imagine, a vote means some people are in, some people are out, some people, are getting off completely. And so, they have really, what it's come down to is individually met with everyone who is not doing the full immersive Africa to determine, what do you want to do? What works for you? We want to support you in your time, and providing compensation for it. So even the full Africa stay on cruisers are compensated 25% of that leg just for changing the itinerary, which in the end, again, everybody has a different opinion, but in the end, to me, that feels very generous.
Feels very fair. Yeah.
Yes. And then they also said you can do half of Africa down to Cape Town, and we'll call that A, and then Cape Town up, we'll call that B. And if you want to do A and get off for B, they'll compensate you for every day you're off for B, or vice versa. Or if you want to get off for the entire Africa portion, they're compensating 100% of it.
I wonder if they offered to fly some, because Royal's obviously sailing in the Med anyway, and probably has some capacity left on some of its ships. I wonder if they offered to some folks, like, we'll go put you on a Med cruise and get you to rejoin the ship at all, or anything like that. Like that, they've got some options that some levers they can pull. Yeah. So
I think that they gave that. I think they said, you do what you want to do. So if you wanted to get on another Royal Caribbean ship, we've now reimbursed you your cruise fare, right? So if you want to go get on another ship, you figure out the days, you join that ship, and then you get back. But they're not doing anything that I know of to facilitate that.
Did they ever tell you how close the vote was? I mean, was it like an overwhelming majority of the world cruisers wanted to do the immersive Africa, or did they give you an indication?
No, I would assume it was probably overwhelming only because when we were discussing it as a group and they said, here's what we're going to do. Because remember, we were speculating for weeks of how are they going to handle this and what are they going to present. So when they did and they said, we're going to go around Africa, pretty much you heard a roaring applause.
Yeah.
And so, which was kind of surprising because these people signed up, all of them, right, signed up to do several world wonders and the Med. And so it was surprising and honestly surprising for Royal that it was instantly like, wow. But we had also been speculating for a while. Mm-hmm. I will tell you on a side note so that you know, we actually, Roy and I, for our journey, have decided that we're actually disembarking. Oh. We're getting off. Yeah, we're getting off. Roy's not a super, he wasn't super excited about seeing Africa. And I think going to Africa and doing a very extensive safari was definitely on our list. But cruising and doing it this way just wouldn't afford for that safari. And so the port stops and we debated just going down to Cape Town and seeing Seychelles and Mauritius and Madagascar, doing that. But then also the compensation. And so in the end, we spent weeks discussing it.
It's a hard decision.
It is. It's a beautifully difficult position to be in. But we decided we're going to disembark in Dubai and we're getting back on in Ravenna, which is basically Venice.
Nice.
And we're
so you'll meet up for the last leg of the cruise. You'll just, you'll miss part of leg 3, but not all of leg 3. Can I ask one question about the vote? Was it one person, one vote, or was it like based on one cabin, one vote?
Every person who purchased a world cruise ticket or package, right?
So every individual.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So, if you have 4 people in your cabin, you have 2 children that paid for 2 children,
right.
tickets.
So 4 votes.
You had 4 votes. Yes.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. And they did never tell us what the result of the vote was other than, it's appeared that it was the majority were on that page.
Yeah.
So I've got one comment and one question. My comment would be, it is, no knock on your decision. You are out there sailing, but it is really cool to hear them doing that immersive around Africa experience. I just don't know many cruise lines that really do that as a sailing.
There aren't. They don't exist.
Yeah,
they don't exist.
And kudos to Royal because the logistics around setting that up have to be, not insignificant. So very cool to hear. I guess my question, Liz, is so what are you going to get up to in the time between disembark and re-embark?
Yeah. So one of the things that was very important to us was seeing the world wonders. And so we're missing Egypt and the pyramids. We're missing Jordan and Petra and Athens and, that area. And so what we decided to do is we're leaving in Dubai. We're flying to Cairo. We're doing Egypt for a bit. We're going to Petra to see Petra. We're flying from Petra. We were going to go to Athens, but we're actually going to fly from Petra to Rome. And we're starting in Rome and we're going to spend a month just backpacking, basically.
That's amazing.
All the way up through Rome to do some of Switzerland and then down into Venice.
Oh, now, fantastic.
Are you taking everything with you or would Royal let you keep stuff in your cabin?
No. So that was obviously part of the decision, the financial compensation. What is the compensation going to be? Are we still world cruisers? The status, how does that work? And our cabin, because remember in our last conversation that the 3 of us had, packing for this journey was a feat in itself. And we have large bags and several of them that we aren't going to need and don't want to drag with us through the Mediterranean, right? And so we retain the world cruise status. We retain our cabin. We keep all of our stuff in our cabin. We just take what we want and the rest stays here. Like I said, Royal compensated us 100% of our expense for the days that we're off the ship.
Amazing.
And said,
That's amazing, because then that means they can't fill your room with somebody else, because your stuff will still be there. It'll essentially still be your apartment, for lack of a better term.
But Sam, we sat down with a representative from Royal, and she said, "This is your journey, and we want to support you in your journey. This is your vacation. Like, we want you to enjoy wherever you are in the world. Do whatever you want. Just tell us what you want, and we'll support you in that." And so, yeah, they didn't. The only thing they said is, if you're going to get off from here to here, you're off. Don't come knocking back on the door saying you want to get back on, because you're off. They have to obviously delegate, that who's on board and who's not, right? And as cruisers, we all know that we get status days, right, as part of the Crown and Anchor program. And so the days that we're off of the ship, which equate to about 43 days, we don't get Crown and Anchor status for those 43 days. But because of the World Cruise being 274, we're already Diamond Plus anyway, and we are so far platinum that those 43 days weren't impactful to us either. And Brian, to your point, it's Africa, it's the Med, it's it was such a difficult decision.
Both are great options.
Yeah, but in the end, we were clear that we both needed to have the experience that was incredible. Yeah.
And you haven't killed him yet. So,
no,
I mean,
no. He hasn't killed me for, the other thing that Royal said is, let's say Sam wants to go to Africa and Brian doesn't, right?
Right. I was curious about that.
Sam stays on board. She retains her cabin. She goes to Africa. Brian is reimbursed his cost. He goes and does his thing. You're basically individual people, and they'll support him and support you, and you just do whatever you want.
Which is impressive, because usually it's like a double occupancy price. So that's great. That's great. So let me say, we can't wait to hear about this exciting side trip that you're going to have. So we have to have you back once you rejoin the ship, and we have to hear all about it. But let's rewind. So you hit LA to start leg 2. Talk to our listeners about what leg 2 encompasses and where you've been so far.
Yeah. So leg 2 starts us from LA, and our first stop is Hawaii. We had never been to Hawaii. In my mind, Hawaii was always for honeymooners and so we just had never gone to Hawaii. And it was interesting. Our Hawaii stops were Hilo, Kona, and Honolulu. And just personally, we checked off Hawaii and said, thank you. And that was good. We won't go back. I don't think we would go back to Hawaii. It was beautiful. We enjoyed it, but that was good. There are areas of Hawaii that we hadn't seen that are probably beautiful, but we just keep thinking about all these places in the world that we haven't seen. And so Hawaii was good. Honolulu, we did a luau it was just beautiful. Loved it. We went on from there to French Polynesia, Moorea, and Tahiti. Moorea shot to the top of my list. Absolutely stole my heart. Loved it there.
Wow.
We kayaked in clear, transparent kayaks in water that looks like what you hold in a glass. And swam with sharks, and it was incredible. Went to Tahiti. Same thing with Tahiti. I had these images of Tahiti in my mind, and we left Tahiti and said, thank you, Tahiti. We will not go back there. Again, beautiful, but it was not Moorea. And we had just been so tainted with Moorea that Moorea is going to be hard to top, but we obviously have 171 days still to go. So we'll see.
Plenty of places.
Yeah. Then we went from French Polynesia to New Zealand. Loved New Zealand.
Had you ever been to New Zealand or Australia before?
No, Sam, this is a whole different world. Like, I feel like I'm on a different planet. We are in an area of the world that's just so far from Arizona where we live. And I've traveled a lot, but this is just such a distance that when you're trying to decide your vacation spots, flying for 20 hours is just usually not on the list. And so, this whole rest of the way is nothing that I've ever even thought I would be in. I was just recording a video this morning for New Zealand, and the beginning of the video is I'm in New Zealand. Like, this is just crazy, right? So, that was crazy. And then we went on from there to Australia, and our first stop in Australia is Sydney.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah. And for days before Sydney, they were pumping up on the ship. Oh my gosh, be ready. It's Sydney. You have no idea. It's going to be amazing. We're so excited. And so I started thinking, am I going to be disappointed? Because this is a lot of hoopla.
A lot of hype.
Right?
Yeah.
And it is a testament to having a like I've had thousands of reasons to have a balcony cabin on a cruise ship, but Sydney was absolutely one of them. Coming in the harbor on a cruise ship into Sydney was, just an experience I will never forget. And it kind of snakes around. So you think you're going to see the iconic Sydney, and then it curves, and you're waiting, and then it comes around. I'm going to see it. And then the Opera House is just breathtaking, the Sydney Harbor Bridge. And then we were already extra super excited because our plan was to climb the Sydney Harbor Bridge. And
oh, yes.
and I'm petrified of heights. So climbing the bridge, at the peak of the bridge, you're 440 feet above water and fully exposed 100% on top of the bridge. One of the coolest things I've ever done in my life.
Well, and I want to explain, because I saw your photos from this. So she says climb the top of the Sydney Harbor Bridge. Doesn't mean walk across to the apex of the bridge. It means climb the actual superstructure of the bridge. Yeah. It was amazing. Yes,
you're literally on top of. You are anchored the entire time. But being afraid of heights, I don't care how anchored I am. It's a journey. It's an experience. But yeah, it was the view and just the whole uniqueness of it, the exhilaration. It was really spectacular. Australia, we'd go back to Australia in a blink. Absolutely loved it. Went from Australia to Indonesia. So, Indonesia, we were just in Bali, and another place that is just, if I'm ever missing, you two are responsible to look in Indonesia and Bali first, because that is absolutely a place that I would be hiding.
And Moorea. We know where to look. Indonesia, Bali, and Moorea. That's where Leslie's going to be. She disappears.
Everything you hear about Bali, no need to research your Bali vacation. Just book it and go. Unbelievably super cool, warm, welcoming, incredible people. Tomorrow we'll be in the Philippines. Leg 2 is China, Japan. China's the Great Wall. Another one of our world wonder excursions is the Great Wall. Japan, South Korea, Vietnam, Malaysia, Sri Lanka. Yeah, it just ends in Dubai.
Oh my God.
Do they do any overnighting of the ship in any of these places? Like in Sydney, did you stay for more than one day, or were you just in excursions and then out again?
So yes and no. So I did a post about the top 5 things I love in the first 100 days and the top 5 things I haven't loved. And one of the things I haven't loved is I've wished we've stayed overnight in more places. Mm-hmm. And some of the stops feel like, Brian's going to be super excited if we stop in a whole bunch of places, and it just feels like it'd be super cool, but it really hasn't been as cool. It would have been nice to eliminate some of those places and stay overnight and more. But how do you decide that too? I guess the bigger
really
places,
hard.
Then the bigger places, it's more expensive for them to dock. And so I'm sure there's a lot more to it, but some places we have stayed overnight and we've loved that. When we spoke last time, the 3 of us, we stayed overnight in Ushuaia and absolutely loved that. But we could have spent, at least 2 nights in Sydney, if not, days and days and days. There's so much to do, and it would have been well worth it. But most of our ports are 1 day in, 1 day out.
Mm-hmm. Do you feel like Royal's giving a good, I know you're doing a lot, as was Jenny, just on your own, not booking excursions and because that's just not cost effective either. But do you feel like maybe you are getting a good sense of the culture in the brief time that you have there? And, have you done any Royal excursions, and have they been really, I'm wondering if they pivot more toward, let's get you a local experience on this world cruise, as opposed to, you sail the Caribbean or something. It's like, let's go do a zip line, right? Like, I'm wondering if you're seeing them sort of pivot to more of that cultural or local aspect in some of what they're doing and what you're able to get up to.
Well, on board, they've definitely been curating local experiences. They're bringing on local entertainers, dancers, singers. We have local wines, that kind of thing. But I think in port, it's probably very vetted to, safety and what's going to be feasible in time and mobility to get these people around. And, we're just not huge jump on a tour bus people.
You're in good company.
For lots of reasons. And, with Disney cruises, you got kids who tend to move quicker, and this kind of journey, some of these people are quickest movers. And so, it just is a lot. And so for us, it just does not really work. Plus, we're super adventurous and feel very comfortable just doing our own thing. I did a ton of research in every single port before we left. So I know how to get around. I know how far things are and, how easy it is, how safe it is, should we get a cab? Can we walk? That kind of thing. So we've been strategic about that. So to answer your question, I think that we feel like we've very much seen, but we're actually we're going in and down the, in the neighborhoods and around the alleys and stuff. So, safely, but we feel like we've really seen and feel like we know so that we know if this is somewhere we would want to come back and explore further or whether it's good. So to that degree, it's good that we've seen lots of places. But I think that, some of them have been like, I don't even know why we stopped here. And so, but we've definitely loved doing it on our own.
Yeah.
Is the ship getting, I mean, look, this is a, social media sensation, lots of people following along, lots of chatter about it. Is the ship getting much fanfare as it comes into some of these harbors or ports, or people curious about it? Like, I'm just sort of curious. Yeah.
Yeah, each port has been a little bit different. There was news crews in Sydney. So, there was that. There have been news crews at some of the ports we've stopped at. A lot of the ports have had their local, singer, dancers, welcome kind of folks on the pier.
I love
so
that.
that's been really cool. Getting off and just having them singing and dancing and, handing us little things or selling their stuff. And then others, it's been, quiet. So each of them have been different. Sometimes the people in Indonesia, there were just tons of just local people, excited to see us coming in.
That's so cool.
Little kids in Bali were super excited to see the tour buses. It was cool to see them and wave at them. So, they've all been different.
Yeah. I mean, it hadn't even struck me, but from perhaps many of these ports, this might be the first time the Serenade of the Seas has sailed in to these ports. Could even be the first time Royal Caribbean has sailed into,
or even a cruise ship sometimes.
Usually that gets you, like the first time we were on a Disney cruise, it was the first time that the ship we were on, the Wonder, had called on Catalina. There was a whole production as we pulled into harbor, and there was an exchange.
That's just in the U.S.
Blacks, So I could imagine you get some of that fanfare, which is pretty cool. I'm also curious.
And, Royal has told. I asked Royal that question. I can't remember what they told me. I made it in my notes, but I think there's about 35 or 40 ports that Royal Caribbean, as a cruise line, has never been in. That is going that we're going to on the World Cruise. So
that's so cool.
Yeah, and then obviously ports that they don't see a lot of cruise ships in. So
Yeah.
Now, did they do anything special? I can't remember if you crossed, I know you crossed the international date line. Usually they do something special for that. I can't remember if you all made it across the equator. I guess you would have to have at some point.
Yeah, we actually,
did they have any special on board?
We've crossed the equator several times and coming around. We actually did, I think last night or yesterday morning, again, coming up into the Philippines. So initially they were doing the Polywog ceremony and the equator ceremony. But now we've crossed it so many times. I think they're like, whatever.
We're like, everybody's
they're all shellbacks now. Yeah, they're all shellbacks.
That's
now,
over.
So we don't have to do it.
Yeah. Except for these poor people who are on these shorter legs who only crossed it maybe once. And I don't mean the ones who are on for the 3-month legs. I mean the ones who are on for the even shorter segments, as we talked about the last time. For those who haven't listened to our previous episode, there are folks who are on, like Leslie, who booked the entire 9 months. There are folks who booked one leg, as we're calling it. There's 3 legs, so 3-month segments. And then there are folks who have booked just like a regular cruise, like a week long or whatever, kind of itinerary. And so, those people are having a very different experience. Actually, I'd love to know, Leslie, how has that been with like new people coming on, and do they sort of get integrated into the World Cruiser community, or are they sort of their own separate community? It's a very odd social experiment.
And are you guys like celebrities on board? Because people have been following along with you the whole way. So they're like, oh my God, it's Leslie. Like, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm not sure because it feels just like initially, I'll admit, the very first segment, it was just, we left Miami. So it was all of us together. And then the first leg or the first moment where people started leaving or getting back on board, I was kind of like, like, this is ours. Like,
this is our ship. This is not yours.
And like, this is where I sit, and this is my pool chair. And I was really kind of weirded out or possessive in like a weird way, which faded quickly, thankfully. But since then, it's just been kind of like the natural thing and seeing new faces and new people. And it just kind of feels like, I think, a normal cruising experience where you're coming in and you don't recognize people and everybody's just kind of like, oh, there's new friends. And, and so It seems like hopefully they all are feeling like they're, joining a normal cruise and, part of things like we are.
Just with people who've been on for months and months and months.
Yeah. I have to tell you all a funny international dateline story if I can for a quick second.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
So we crossed the international dateline on my dad's birthday, kind of. My dad turned 80. And so, you all are on Friday, I'm on Saturday. And so in my world, his birthday was the day before. So I called him on what was my day of his birthday. And then I called him the next day, which was his legitimate day of his birthday.
So we got two celebrations.
Yeah. And we had everybody on board celebrating with him. So it was just fun. The whole time change and dateline thing has just been bonkers.
It is wild. It is, setting up our call, Brian and I had to okay, so if it's Saturday at 10 a.m. for Leslie and Jenny, it will be 6 p.m. on Friday for us. And then because we were trying to figure out what day, we're trying to pick a day that you're at sea because we know the sea days are like your sort of restful days. We don't want to interrupt you when you're in Bali or in Moorea or in the Philippines. We know you're exploring. You're not going to be sitting in your stateroom talking to us. But so it is a kind of a weird thing, especially since you're speaking to us from the future right now. So for anyone that doesn't, believe in time travel, it's real because Leslie's speaking to us from Saturday and it's Friday.
So Leslie, I'm curious, you're well past the honeymoon phase on board. You mentioned, things that kind of settled into a rhythm. Have your opinions changed at all about kind of the decision to do this kind of 9-month experience? Anything on board that's like, all right, that was cute for a while and now it's just driving me crazy, right? Kind of that every stage, right? You kind of go from the honeymoon into this lived experience. So anything like that happened for you?
Well, I don't know, but I think that I've probably maximum sailed on a cruise ship for maybe 10 days. So rounding 100 days, it's just, you just have no idea how to plan or prepare for that. But I am very surprised how comfortable and routine and just settled we are. We leave in the morning to go get breakfast. We come back with our coffee. It just is so normal that has been really weird. I told you that I made the things I've loved the most and the things I've not loved so much. And one of the things that I haven't loved is that it's stimulation overload. There's just constant, which is great because there's constant things and experiences and stuff to do on board. But I very much appreciate this quiet time and, being able to, just have quiet. And they're short of being in the cabin, there is zero quiet space. So that's been kind of a bummer, especially because the internet has been so good. There are people cruising that are working that to have some quiet space would be nice. But otherwise, lots of questions on social media about food and how do you even deal with food? And the food has been so great. And I have not been disappointed about the food at all. I'm a vegetarian, so the only thing I would ask would be for more vegetables. But short of that, the food has been great. The staff is amazing. Nothing on the ship. I have very little complaints, and I'm so happy that we're comfortable.
Nice,
awesome. How has it been with new staff coming on? Because I know at certain points in your cruise, you've got people's contracts rotating, right? So let's say your server or your stateroom attendant or whatnot, their contracts don't necessarily line up with the 9-month, cruise. How has that been when you have changeover in crew? And, obviously you're meeting a new person for, or having a new, like I said, a new server or a new stateroom attendant or a new bartender or something like that.
Yeah. So I wasn't expecting to have them. I just didn't really think it through. I don't think that I would have them for enough of a time that I would create a bond with anyone that would be impactful, as I just assumed they would be switching around and moving around. And we had our very, very favorite bartender left. So we've missed her. We had some switchover with our waitress. We've had quite a few different waiters and waitresses because we've moved tables a bit. We have a group of core friends, but we have 10 at our table. So they've kind of had to,
that's a big table.
Us. Yeah, they've had to accommodate us, and that's changed our waitress and waiters. But our last waitress, we got to know very, very well. Her story, her family, and I had to say goodbye to her and walk away when she left. And I thought I was going to be fine. And y'all, I broke down
into tears,
sobbing on the way out of the restaurant. Her story is just really, really sweet and very. She's got a lot going on and is going home to it. And it was just really touched me. And, some of these people have not seen their family for months and months and months. Yeah. And, so that really got me and surprised me. But our room attendant has 6 more days and he's extended and extended and extended. So he asked me not to talk about it because he's so excited to go home. I think he's worried he's going to have to extend again. And so, I think they want to, they want the money, but they also miss their family. Our room attendant's been on board for 8.5 months now.
Wow. Yeah. Can you imagine? Yeah.
And some of them
working really, really hard the whole time. Wow.
Speaking of the crew, I'm so curious. I mean, I know that, how does tipping work? I mean, for a cruise of this length, like, we go on a week-long cruise, you get a slip, you add a couple bucks, but like, obviously a cruise of this length, you probably don't want to be adding a couple bucks to every check you're writing, because then it's like, that adds up. So like, how does the tipping work with the crew for the World Cruisers?
So there's 2 things with that. So first of all, when we paid for the World Cruise, the gratuity is included. So it's already covered for everything. But, we've had some extraordinary experiences. And so there's little tip, gratuity envelopes, and you can do additional gratuity, which we've done for several people. It's totally optional, obviously, because the gratuity is built in, and it's significant. It was built in. So, but you can additionally tip them. What was I going to say? There was a second thing I was going to say about the tipping. No, I can't remember.
That's all right. It might come back to you.
Is it? And I mean, obviously you can tip them at any point, but I imagine that when somebody you love leaves you, that's like when you also kind of want to give them that extra thank you and send them home with some extra money when they've made such an impact on your life and your experience. And so
for sure, especially in our stateroom, right? The stateroom guy. I mean, like we're seeing him every day.
Yeah.
And so he's I have a whole thing on social media going of how many towel animals will I have in 274 days. And so I told him about it. And so now he's trying to switch it up. Instead of doing his normal routine, he'll, do 3 in a day, and then I don't see them for a week or whatever. So I've got a running thing with the towel animals. So he's, and he's just done some special things. I lost something and we searched together. We were on the floor searching together. So, he's just been, really special. So for sure, we've wanted to take care of them.
All right, I got to ask, what's the most unique towel animal he's made for you? Because we've seen monkey, we've seen elephant, we've
seen pirates on Disney.
I've seen guy lounging in bed made out of towels. Like, what was the most unique one?
Yeah. So we've had a lobster. Let's see, which one was the most unique? Oh, so it's not really unique, but I saved him. He told me I can't save all of my towel animals because there was going to be a towel
issue. They need the towels. Yeah.
But he made this little rhino guy.
Oh, that's so cute. Oh and my goodness.
He's so small that he's all wrapped up in rubber bands and stuff. And I just love him.
He's like washcloths or something.
Yeah. Too. And then I have an elephant back there that is got a little New Year's Eve hat on him and stuff. So yeah, I don't know which one's kind of been the most unique. They're probably very similar to what everybody's seen, but he just kind of keeps trying to throw them in there for me. They have a routine, I think, with them, or like a schedule. And so when I told him, he's been adding extra ones in there to mix up the numbers.
I love that. I love that. What was like the most surprising port that you've been to since we talked to you last that you didn't expect to like love, but you just were floored by?
Gosh, that is such a difficult question because we've loved so many.
Yeah.
As I said, Moorea was definitely stole my heart. But when you think about French Polynesia and Tahiti and Moorea, you think about the waters, and that's what it was. It was just really special. So I don't know how much that really surprised me. I think Sydney, it was up there, but mostly because I was trying to not psych myself up that all this hoopla, is it going to be really worth it? And it was really cool. That experience there was really cool.
I love that.
Yeah, Chile is definitely, since we talked last time and we'd already left Chile, but Chile definitely surprised me. Uruguay surprised me. So some areas I would have just never even thought about going to. Obviously Antarctica, probably the answer to your question is Antarctica. Because I don't know if I would have ever even been able to or thought about going to Antarctica. I live in the desert. I'm a lizard, so snow just doesn't register for me as vacation. But that was just soul-changing craziness, Antarctica.
I know I want to ask you the opposite, which is what was a place that you thought you would probably enjoy or you always like wanted to go to and you went and you were like, I don't need to come back. It wasn't like, not that it was terrible, but it's just like not the wonder that you might have expected it to be.
Yeah, so definitely, I know this just goes against what a lot of people are going to be like, what is she thinking? But for sure, Hawaii was
interesting.
Just, I don't know. You know, again, maybe it was the ports we stopped at, but that was not at all what I thought it would be. And, you know, it was beautiful. It was nice, but yeah, for sure. And Tahiti, as I said with Tahiti, it was like, could have skipped that.
Yeah. What is the port or a couple of ports that you're most looking forward to on the rest of this leg so far?
Oh yeah, because just stick with leg 2 because leg 3 is you guys have your journey off and then you're getting back on. So there's plenty more to look forward to there. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's funny too, because before we left, we made a top 5 list, and that top 5 list was getting really jeopardized because so many of the spots, you know, we've either haven't been able to go to or won't be going to. So that's interesting. It'll be fun to see at the end just what that top 5 will be. But Vietnam was on my top 5 list. Vietnam is in leg 2, and I'm very excited to see Vietnam.
Oh, cool.
And I can't, if you said why, I wouldn't even be able to articulate why. I just, for some reason, have it like that. That's going to be very special.
Yeah.
So I'm excited. Hopefully I won't be disappointed.
Yeah.
I feel like there's a bit of mystery around Vietnam. I'm a big fan of Anthony Bourdain, and when he was doing his travel shows and went to Vietnam, it was always just impressive to see what he got up to there. So it's kind of that mystery around it that surrounds it that I think is so amazing. Yeah,
for sure. I ate at Anthony Bourdain's top street food cart in Ensenada. He said it was the best street food he'd ever eaten in the world. And I was going to be in Ensenada, and I was going to that place, and I had a moment with the guy, and it was everything that I had hoped it to be. I'm a huge foodie, so for sure.
I love that. I love that.
Well, Sam, do you have any more questions for Leslie? We should get her back to her day at sea here.
I know. Well, I want to know now that you've got sort of your routine on board, like sort of when, where you go to breakfast, that you bring your coffee back, that sort of a thing. What is like your favorite thing to do on a day like today, other than, of course, talk to the DCL duo? But no, what's your favorite thing to do?
It's you guys. Can we talk every single day, every single sea day?
Yes. If can I quit my job though and come on board with you? Because that's what I really want to do.
I kind of want to find the date that you all are going to be in New York to get off and come meet you and Jenny.
Yes, yeah, how fun would that be? We've actually got social media people. The people on social media have been just incredible because they're all from all over the world. So there are people that are in Vietnam that are saying, "I live there. Like I can meet you. I can show you around. Let me tell you the great places to go, the restaurants to be." So just really cool. So on Sea Days, to be honest, my favorite thing is I'm on social media, right, in a huge presence. So I'm doing a lot of YouTube editing for the YouTube videos, and I love it. I love doing it. I want everyone watching to feel like they're here with us, experiencing with us. So that's been really fun for me. Plus, when I'm doing it, I'm reliving the entire
everything
day.
You did.
Right?
Yes,
going
I love
through
that.
the videos, going through my notes, putting it together. So that's been really fun. I have special places on board that I go to that are kind of my spots that, I'm comfortable in to do it. We have friends on board, so meeting them, we have happy hour almost every night with our friends. And so getting together with them and just recapping their day and what we've done. And so that's fun too. And just kind of decompressing, getting ready for the next stop, because this moment of Sea Days right now are the last of the longest we will have. We're rounding the corner to having one or two at most. And so what I didn't think I would appreciate about Sea Days getting on board, I absolutely relish them now to just rest and regroup and kind of take in Australia, or Indonesia, so that I can get ready for the Philippines and, go on to the next stop.
Amazing.
Very
Yeah,
cool.
because you have a couple of Sea Days coming up next weekend. Also, like you've got sort of a string where you've got, I don't know, kind of 4 or 5 Sea Days within like a 2-week period. And I know this because we were trying to arrange, obviously, to do this recording on one of your Sea Days, and we chose one of the earlier ones. So I'm sure you're looking forward to that. But I think it's amazing that you're sharing this experience with the world, Leslie. We so appreciate you coming on and updating us on what's going on in your journey. We look forward to having you back again when you are on leg 3, so that we can hear what you all got up to, of course, on your journey on your own to the Med, basically, and then of course the end of the world cruise. So thank you so much. Why don't you tell our listeners where they can find you on all things social media, so that they can follow along with you on a more regular basis? Because obviously we're just doing these kind of couple month updates because we want to be sensitive of your time. We know you've got a lot going on, but why don't you tell our listeners where they can follow along with you more closely?
Thank you so much for having me on. It's so fun to be with you guys and sharing it with your listeners. And if anyone has any questions or anything comes up, feel free to reach out to me in the interim. I'm so excited to come back with you whenever you want to have me back. And I'm on any and all social media platforms that, are the big players, at least, that, I can manage. Instagram and TikTok and, all that. And then on YouTube as well. And everything is Point My Soul North.
Amazing.
Great. Well, Leslie, thanks once again for taking the time to share all of this experience with our audience. World Cruise is on my bucket list, and this is just making me more and more excited to do one. So thank you so much for taking the time. We really, really appreciate it.
Thank you.